What's up, Victoria? It's Victoria and welcome to the After Sass. This is the Critical Sass after show in which I look at all of the new releases that I talked about in Critical Sass. I go through my makeup collection and I pull out things in my makeup collection that are similar to the new makeup releases to try to scratch the itch of anything that I might potentially have wanted in that new release video. If you are new to my channel, wow, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers before the end of the month. It is June, it's Pride Month, and I just want to hit it before the end of Pride Month. If you want to do that, please hit the subscribe button down below. Also hit the like button while you are down there. In Critical Sass, I was trying to raise funds. Everything I make in AdSense, all the super thanks and things like that that get put on that video will be donated to a local charity to me. It's called Sisters Pittsburgh. It's a Black trans-led organization that helps BIPOC trans people in Pittsburgh find the resources they need, such as housing. If you would like to donate, please use the donation link in the pinned comment down below. If you haven't watched Critical Sass, make sure you watch Critical Sass. I'm going to be donating all the AdSense and money from Critical Sass, but I think it makes more sense for you to make a direct donation yourself. Let me know in the comments if you did donate. I would love to know if you did. And yeah, thank you so much for donating and helping me raise money for a good cause. And it's really scary to be a trans person right now, and Black trans women are the most marginalized people in our community, so I wanted to do something that could directly support them. Obviously, there are a lot of other things that are very important that are going on in the world and have been going on in the world that we could donate our time and money to. I just wanted to keep these two videos very focused on Sisters Pittsburgh. Now let's get started. I talked about that new Maison Margiela fragrance in Critical Sass, and I talked about how I had a couple skin scents. So I just pulled out this. This is the Glossier You Do, and it smells so good. This scent doesn't last very long on my skin. That's like the only real downside to it, but I like it. But I've gotten quite a bit of a dent going on it. I would say this is the fragrance I'm tearing through the quickest right now. It's kind of just like what I wear on the day-to-day. I tend to like something with a little bit more projection, which I'm assuming that since they are describing that Maison Margiela fragrance as a skin scent, that the projection probably isn't very far on that. That's great. I have something in my collection that I can use that will scratch that itch, and I'm really happy about it. The next thing I applied off camera, but I talked about that Dior lip balm and how much of a scam I think it is. And also, I'm just not sure that the Dior lip balm is going to be the most nourishing thing one could use to nourish your lips. So today I'm using the EADEM lip balm. Now, this is not like a drugstore priced product, but this has a bit of an exfoliating agent in it that helps make your lips look really smooth, but it's also very nourishing. I like to use this as a prep step. It's a Black owned business, I believe, and so you could go ahead and support that as opposed to buying from Dior. And EADEM is very nice. I did receive this product in PR. This is the shade Boba Bounce. I didn't talk about any concealers today. I'm going to use the Victoria Beckham concealer in the shade FL1, and then we'll move on to a product that I did talk about in Critical Sass. In Critical Sass, I talked about e.l.f.'s new tinted moisturizer with SPF 50 in it, and I talked a lot about SPF and the discussion around sunscreen every summer, and more specifically, the conversation around the use of SPF in tinted moisturizers. Are you getting enough to get the actual efficacy of the 50 SPF? And I talked about how I would prefer a tinted moisturizer that just simply doesn't have an SPF in it, and I have one. This is from ELDRIDGE. This is her Seamless Skin Tint. I use the shade T3. I've loved this product for a really long time. I bought it pretty close to launch, not right directly when it launched, mostly because a lot of people told me I would really like it, and they were right. As I also said in Critical Sass, I'm not like the biggest fan of kind of like the cult mentality that seems to happen around ELDRIDGE. I do really think that this product is really lovely. And here's a couple of things I like about it. Instead of something that does have an SPF in it, there's no like minimum amount I have to apply. If I want something a little more sheer, I just apply less. If I want a little bit of more coverage, I will just apply a little bit more of the skin tint. This one's pretty buildable, but I'm looking for just a little bit of a sheerer coverage today, and I don't have to worry about the SPF efficacy, and I also don't have to worry about the SPF that I'm wearing underneath it, whether or not it will cancel out the efficacy of the tinted SPF that I'm putting on top of it. So in that way, it's just like a really nice option for me. This is just what I prefer. I know that some people really do like tinted moisturizers because it solves the problem for them. I just don't like wearing that much complexion product usually anymore, and I find as I get older, the less product, and almost kind of like even when you're younger too, the less product you're putting on your face, the more natural it's going to look. Not even if you're going for a natural look, but it's going to look more like your skin, even if you are applying something with more coverage. Just if you're applying as little of it as possible, you're really going to get a more seamless finish, and that's what I'm looking for now. What I like about this that a tinted SPF really kind of can't provide is the fact that it is an actual skin finish, meaning it's not super glossy, it's not very thick, and I just think that that looks better on my skin. There is just something to like having that thick of a layer of like a tinted SPF on that just like isn't super flattering in my opinion. And that's why I didn't choose to use the Merit, the uniform, which I do have. I got that in PR. In the aftersass, I do try to use the makeup that's in my permanent drawer as opposed to reaching for products that are like newer to me or that I received in PR that I haven't really tested yet, pulling those into this video. The whole purpose is to like look in my makeup collection. The uniform is a tinted moisturizer with an SPF in it, and I actually quite like it. I like the way it looks on my skin, and actually it has a beautiful finish if I'm applying as much as I want, which is like very little, but it's not going to give me the SPF. That's the whole thing. It's just like I'd rather put on a sunscreen and then put my complexion product over top of it. That's my preference. You might have a different one. In days where I'm like wearing SPF and I'm like leaving the house and things like that, I'm going to be directly in the sun, then I can choose to wear SPF. But if I'm going out at night, if I want my skin to have coverage of a tinted moisturizer, I can just use the tinted moisturizer because you don't need the SPF at night. So it's just like I can flex better if I have a tinted moisturizer that I like that doesn't have the SPF in it and I have a separate SPF. Kind of like stretching things here. I'm going to be using this from e.l.f. This is the shade Omen in their Inner Glow Cream pigment, and this is one of their contour shades. It's the second latest contour shade. I was talking about the shade Endless Cacao from Makeup Forever and how it came in that chubby stick that Makeup Forever came out with. And I was talking about how this is also described as a multi-use product, but this is actually a better contour color for me than Endless Cacao. Endless Cacao is not warm by any means, but the way my skin tone works is just I need something that is like a little more dead looking than most people need for a contour. And so this provides that for me. Not only that, it is a multi-use product as well. I can use it on my lips and my eyes if I want to as well. It does the exact same thing. And if I were to buy any of those jumbo sticks, I would buy the Endless Cacao one. I don't even need it because I have Omen and I would only have probably used it to contour. You can definitely prefer a stick product if that's what you're into. The big benefit of a stick, as long as the formula allows it and is good enough for it, you can put it directly onto your cheek and draw the lines that you want to draw. I have been finding that even if I have a stick product, I still apply it from the product to my face. I think if it's sold as a stick product, it should be able to be used drawing on the face. But since this would be the way I would do it even if it wasn't a stick format, having it potted in a pan works just as well for me. In Critical Sass, I talked about the Fara Homidi bronzer that is coming to Sephora very shortly. If I don't post this before it comes out, then it must have just recently came out. I'm filming all out of order. I'm going away on vacation for a couple of days and I don't really want to be on the internet while I'm out and about. So I'm trying to film as much as I can to have some stuff go up for when I'm away and also when I come back so that I don't have to immediately rush into making content when I get home. So the Fara Homidi bronzer, it's a really exciting launch because I think that those bronzer shades look really considered. With a bronzer range, it's almost never going to feel like there's going to be enough options as far as depth. I think that we could have done better than 4, especially considering the concealer range or the complexion product that they sell has a pretty okay shade range. I would expect that you have a bronzer shade deep enough for your deepest concealer shade. They'll have really deep foundation shades, but they won't have deep bronzer shades. That doesn't really make any sense to me. Anyway, that's besides the point. The lightest bronzer shade is a bronzer shade that looks really compelling to me. I like a rosy bronzer. That's the kind of bronzer that I think looks best on my skin. But in Critical Sass, I talked about how I have bronzers that already are that color. And I've also been really in love with a bronzer that I bought recently, and the excitement hasn't died because it's just been working really well for me. So the rosy bronzer of choice for me is this one. This is the one from Gucci. It's the lightest shade in the Gucci bronzer. I depotted mine, and then while I was depotting mine, I broke it, which is weird because it's actually a magnetic compact, but they glue it in the United States. But if you live in the UK, you can buy just refills for the Gucci bronzer. I don't understand why that's the way it is. I have Surat's Grisaille is also a nice rosy bronzer, and I also have this from xxxl. It's their Toasted blush in the shade 4, or I think it's the shade 4 Toasted. They have a couple different blushes, but there's only one shape to this one, so if you happen to look for it, that's the one. It's the shade 4. The bronzer I've been loving a lot recently, and the one that I'm going to use today is this from Trixie Cosmetics. If you have been around, you know that this is my favorite bronzer. I have been singing its praises since I tried it a couple of months ago, and I've been using it a lot since I got it, and I'm like, I think I'm halfway done with the product. I don't know if it's just that there isn't a ton of product, and all of the other cream bronzers I've used before have had a lot more product than this. I do feel like I'm tearing through it a bit, but it's not the most expensive bronzer I've ever used, so I don't know. I have no problem paying for it whenever this is the level of bronze I'm getting. I don't love a very intense bronze. I like something that looks a little more natural. Like, I love applying a lot of bronzer if I'm like in the mood for it, but this is like the perfect everyday go-to kind of bronzer for me. And the funny thing about this bronzer is it's not rosy at all, but there's something about this shade that looks very natural on my skin too, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for when I am shopping for a bronzer, or that's what I want out of a bronzer. This provides a nice color that works for me, even though it isn't like a rosy bronzer. It just really works for me, and I just want a bronzer with a color that works for me. So I'm happy to have it. I love it, and I'm gonna keep using it instead of buying the Fara Homidi. Now, I mean, like, will I maybe buy the Fara Homidi to review? It's like not out of the realm of possibility. I wouldn't buy it as a consumer at this juncture if I had my druthers, and I do because it's me. The thing that I think is the most important, and the thing that I think I need talked out of the most, and this is going to be the biggest practice for me, there's a lot of these beautiful bright lavender blushes that are coming out. The one from Charlotte Tilbury has one, and the one from Dior has one. And I was talking about specifically in Critical Sass, the shade Wisp from Phytosurgeons. Now, this is a little bit of like a grungier lavender is what I would say. It's just got a little bit of oomph to it. On the cheek, it doesn't look as grungy as it tends to look in the swatches, but that's what it looks like. So this isn't like as bright as I imagine those lavender shades that I'm really compelled by from Dior and Charlotte Tilbury. But I also took this out of my testing drawer. Like I said, I don't normally like to do that, but I recently realized I'm in love with this shade, and I love the Trixie bronzer so much. Trixie Cosmetics also makes a cream blush. I'm not attracted to most of the blush shades in this line, but this is the shade Baby, that bright pop of lavender. It's like a pink with a little bit of purple in it, as opposed to being like lavender. I think that this looks more like the Charlotte Tilbury purple as opposed to the one from Dior. The Dior one is a little more purple looking in my head, but it's all gonna kind of read very similarly. And I recently applied this in a video. I don't know if that video is up first or if this video is up first, just based on like how I'm planning on releasing things. I either just applied this in a video, or if that video is not up yet, I'm gonna apply it again very shortly in a different video for you. And so I'm just gonna apply that to the top of my cheeks. I think this is a really good color for me. Obviously, it's not a natural flush, but I just think it's really flattering on my skin tone. And without it like looking like too pink or try hard, obviously this will really depend on your skin tone whether or not that will be the case. I just really love the way that that looks. And I really love this formula. I think it's the same formula as the bronzer. I don't know if I'm like 100% correct, but it like applies very similarly, very one with the skin. And this is really affordable. Of course, I have said that I'm kind of tearing through the bronzer, but I apply a lot more bronzer than I apply a blush, so I have to imagine this will last me a pretty good while. I believe that this is $14, so if you were after this color specifically, potentially consider Trixie Cosmetics' Baby. I can't speak to like potential dupe shades or similar shades otherwise in that line to some of the lines I mentioned, but just as far as that particular lavender shade that I'm very attracted to. I'm gonna powder my face and then we will keep on going. I just used the old formula of the Givenchy Prism Leap powder. In Critical Sass, I talked about Benefit's new Glow Lala powder, and I talked about how it was like a baked powder gel. I also have heard that it was described as pretty creamy, and that description reminded me of this Gucci highlighter that I have. This is the shade Frosted Lilac. Well, what's really nice about this is like, this is a really beautiful formula. I already own it, and Benefit doesn't have a lavender shade, which Gucci does, and I own it. I also own the shade Opal Pink from Gucci, which looks more similar to some of the colors that Benefit has, but since we have this a little bit of lavender moment going on the cheek, I just wanted to keep it going, and so I'm just going to use this. It looks as natural as you want it to on the cheek. You can definitely keep going and building, but I just like a little bit of a dusting of it. It just adds a little bit of glow that I think looks pretty natural, especially for this being a purple highlight. Gucci probably would never dare to like make something super bold, but Gucci is an interesting designer luxury brand when it comes to their makeup, because they have like black lipstick. I think they have like a green and a blue lipstick. And for a while there, they had a lot of like weird, yucky nude colors in their line that like had green undertones and were really mucky looking. It's really interesting. I wish they would have kept that up. They discontinued, I feel like, a lot of those nude shades, A Royal Scandal being like the primary example, but like Gucci is out here doing some interesting stuff, especially if you're considering that it is a designer house that has a makeup line. A lot of the times I feel like the designer makeup lines are like rather unconsidered, but that Gucci normally is. Even if they miss, it's like they tried something. In Critical Sass, I talked about a lot of eyeshadow palettes and a lot of eyeshadow products. And the first thing I went into my collection and pulled out for this video was this from Urban Decay. I was thinking about how Morphe is kind of killing it, and I thought about their potted eyeshadow. I have a couple of eyeshadow sticks that I really like to use that kind of do the same thing that I would use that for. So I just pulled out this one from Urban Decay. This was received in PR. It's the shade, this isn't the right one. This isn't the right one, because one thing that I hate that they did in this line is the matte comes in a shimmery one and the shimmery one's in a matte one. I don't really know what they were thinking. This is the shade Blurred Out from Urban Decay, and I'm just going to use that kind of as an eyeshadow base, which is probably what I would do with one of those Morphe shadows. I swiped the oil off my eyelids to give it an okay start, and I'm just gonna do this one eye at a time. These are something that I feel like set rather quickly, so I feel like they need to be blended pretty quickly. Not like you're running out of time so fast, but definitely not as like malleable as some of the other eyeshadow sticks or something like a MAC Paint Pot would be. The Merit shadows, that the one that dried out on me, and I don't recommend them, even though I did receive that in PR, and Merit's kind enough to send me PR from time to time. And I did like it before it dried out, but if it dried out that fast, I'm like not interested. I have eyeshadow sticks that have lasted longer than that, and I didn't have it that long. And I didn't like the clicking mechanism of the lid, because it was like clearly that, I think that was the issue. It was like really hard to close and open, and I must not have closed it all the way. And there's Blurred Out. That's where we're starting. And I talked about so many things, but the product that I pulled out to kind of like dupe, and I think is a good example, and I kind of mentioned it, or maybe I didn't mention this particular eyeshadow, but I talked about the giant p.louise palette with 150 shades of brown. I do like nude eyeshadows, and I like nude eyeshadow palettes. I have a ton, and what I was saying in that video is that I didn't feel like the eyeshadow color story was really considered, because they were like, we're just going to put every brown in every type of formula that we can. Where this is from Makeup by Mario. This is the OG Ethereal Eyes palette. Even though this is really boring and it is browns, I probably could do most of the looks that I could do with that p.louise palette with this palette, just based on the colors alone. Another thing I said in Critical Sass is like, I think something that you are paying for when you're buying an eyeshadow palette is the vision that someone put it together. So Mario put this color story together, and Natasha Denona puts her color stories together. Of course, they work with teams, you know, Pat McGrath similarly, but it just feels like p.louise didn't want to do the work to even make a boring, easy, neutral brown eyeshadow palette. All she really did was gave you all the options and said, you figure it out, which is, I don't think, something that I'm buying. That's part of the experience. That's what I'm paying for. And I just don't feel like she was offering that. We're going to use this. I'm just going to be using some of the mattes in this one, because I have some other eyeshadows that I want to use as well. I am flying for my trip, and I haven't flown since like all the weird stuff with the airlines had started happening. Even though I flew just last year, it feels like everything already has changed about flying just in that year. I had to get Real ID. I just hadn't gotten it yet because I like didn't need it, and then they kept pushing it back, and it's like a lot more expensive to get Real ID. Not only that, you have to like go through this like verification process. Another thing that I find annoying, and this will probably vary state to state, only some of the DMVs in Pennsylvania offer Real ID in the same day. So there's a much more convenient DMV to my house, but they're not one of the ones that offer Real ID, which is like really annoying. So I had to go to a different part of the city to do it. And it's not even like in the city. I had to like go out of the city limits to go get this done, which is like fine, but it's just like kind of annoying and out of the way, because very few, even in the entire state of Pennsylvania, it's very few of them actually offer it when you like look at the list that offer same day Real ID. I think there's only one DMV in Philly that does it, that's in the actual Philly proper, maybe a couple more outside, but like you might live in the vast middle part of Pennsylvania and have to probably drive like up to like 45 minutes to an hour to get Real ID, which is like really wild. Now they do offer like for you to go to any DMV and like show them like whatever forms of identification that you need to show, and then they'll mail it to you in 15 days. I didn't go that option, one, because I was too close to when I was flying, and I was like, no, I just like need to go ahead and go get it. That option was like not really on the table for me, but it also felt like one of those things where it's like, I feel like the DMV website says that's the service that they offer, but if I went to one of the DMVs that didn't have Real ID, they would be like, we can't give you Real ID, and that's not a thing that we offer. And it's just like, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna come home with it in the same day. Something that I feel like is a constant struggle for anyone who's visiting the DMV is like, no one seems to know what they're doing. And sometimes that's the person who's working at the DMV. But I think a lot of the times it's the people who are going to the DMV. This all started getting enforced, I think, on May 7th, right? Like, I think, and that's like nationally, like everyone in the United States, if you want to fly domestically, you either need a passport or a real ID. I'm planning on getting my passport before the end of summer. Like, I'm gonna get my application in. They had like a specific designated line for people who were getting real ID. There was like steps to it. So if you haven't gotten real ID, or if you live internationally and you're like, what the heck? Real ID is like, it would be like either your driver's license or like if you have like a state ID. You have to go and show them like various forms of identification. And that's like the first step. So they had these like 2 people verifying identification before you could go to the back and actually like get your physical new ID. And then you had to like wait in line there too. Like, so you would get it like a ticket and then you would just like wait in line. Anyway, so they only had 2 people verifying identification. Everyone at the DMV, like not everyone, but most of the people at the DMV, because this is such a recently enforced thing and everyone waited to the last minute and beyond, just like me. So it's like so busy because of that. You would think they would have more than just 2 people, because I was 77th in line and I got to the DMV 15 minutes early, which means that like there were maybe a couple hundred people trying to get real ID. And that's just like what I saw while I was there for the 2 hours I was there. While I was waiting in line, one of the ID verifiers had an encounter with someone who already had real ID, and the person didn't even know they had real ID. So that person wasted their time, wasted the DMV's time, and also wasted everyone who was behind them in line's time, because they just didn't know. And it's like not complicated. Like, there's no way that this person could have accidentally got real ID. Like, you have to go through this verification process to do it. So it was so strange. But like, whenever that happened, the person who worked at the DMV was like, if you have a star on your ID, you already have real ID. There's like a yellow star in the top corner of your ID. And more than just that person had to get out of line because they already had it. And then people get turned away all the time for not having the right identification forms. I know that if you change your name in a marriage, that's like the trickiest one. And I give those people a pass because you definitely have to prove your maiden name or whatever whenever you're doing it. But I think there's like some confusion on what like the marriage thing, like they're either asking for the certificate or the license. Most people are bringing the wrong one whenever they are getting their IDs. Like, there were a couple people who were there again that day that I was talking to that they had to come back because they brought the wrong thing the first time they went to the DMV to try to get it. Before I continue on that story, I talked about the new Morphe 6-pan palettes and how they had baked shades in them, and I basically was like, it feels like this is like drugstore Pat McGrath or affordable Pat McGrath. I have a lot of Pat McGrath baked eyeshadows. So this is something I made. If you've been here for a long time, you probably were here whenever I destroyed all of my Pat McGrath palettes to just save the shades that I like. And so that's what this palette is. It's a little bit messy, but I love her all the same. And I think I'm going to use this blue one. I don't want any of the ones that are too sparkly because the baked shades in the Morphe palette seem more like this formula rather than the topper formula. So that's what I want to put on my eyes today. I'm gonna get out the Mehron mixing medium I have. You could also use setting sprayer, kind of like whatever you want. Because I'm just this person, I've always been this person. It was like, I was this person when I was in high school. I triple, quadruple checked that I had the right documentation before I went to the DMV, just like I was in school, because I didn't want to be turned away. And also, I took off work to do it because there are people who had been going and they were talking about it on the Pittsburgh subreddit about how long the waits have been to do it. And I didn't want to do it on a weekend because that was the days that it seemed like they were having the longest turnaround time to get them. And I was like, this is my one shot to get this. If I don't get it today, then I'm going to be very upset with myself. I passed that part, and the person who checked my verification, he was like, oh wow, this was really nice and neat and you seem to know what you were doing. I barely sat down to get my documentation verified before I was moving on to the next area that I needed to go to. That was nice that I did that, and that was the thing that I was actually most worried about going to the DMV. I got to the other side, and then they were having issues printing things. If you needed like a new picture, like they were having issues, I don't know, the system was like having a hard time, and I felt bad for the DMV people because like it wasn't really their fault. It was just like the system was down. It seemed to be like with the whole state's system. It wasn't just like because ours, like the one that we happened to be at. I didn't need a new picture. I just got my picture taken last year sometime, and I didn't need that. But then I had to wait for everyone who like did need that for their stuff to get sorted. So I was there for just a really long time. Anyway, I just feel like anytime anyone's talking about having gone to the DMV, it's like a very similar experience. So I'm using the Mehron mixing medium. I like didn't really do this as elegantly as I could. I just kind of like jumped in. I know people have asked me about like Mehron mixing medium and different things that I use to like prime my eyes or use with my eyeshadow. The thing is, I think I have talked about that before. I like don't know what video it would have been. I think I have talked about it before a long time ago. It would be old content, really old content at this point. I don't know. I don't think most people would need Mehron mixing medium as a medium unless you have like baked shades or shades like the Pat McGrath shades. But you can also, like I said, use setting spray or, you know, kind of whatever you have to do this with. And not only that, like I'm not doing this elegantly and I don't do it often. So every time I do it, I'm kind of making it up. I don't know that I'm like the best resource to do that. If I like did it all the time, I would happily make that for you, but I don't want to lead you astray. And if I hadn't been into Pat McGrath, and I probably wouldn't have the Mehron mixing medium because the only reason I have it is because she sold it with some of her old kits, and I was like, this is what makeup artists use, and this is a really pretty like denim color. As you saw maybe as I was applying it, it was like balding in some spots of my eye just because I like didn't get the mixing medium to shadow mixture very correct. I just then took the dry side of the eyeshadow with a fluffier brush and picked up the pigment and just tapped it into the bald spots, which were still wet with the mixing medium. And that is how we got here with that. Going back to the Jordan Liberty collection, I talked about those like topper shades. I have a couple options here. Obviously, I have like the Makeup by Mario palette, and I also have these Pat McGrath shades. I think these are a lot sparklier and they're not like the same thing at all. I have them and that's what I'm going to use. And I love a topper shade. I could have gone so many routes to choose something to use as a topper, but I'm going to use this shade right here. I don't remember what palette it came from, and I'm just going to like stipple as I do whenever I want a topper, and I'm just going to stipple it onto the eye. My eye is also still a little wet from the Mehron, so hopefully that will hold it and I don't get too much fallout. But when you're working with toppers, I feel like fallout's kind of like an inevitability depending on the formula. But something loose like this, the Pat McGrath baked shades are like, if you've not interacted with one, they're like rather specific, I feel. And I think that's why a lot of them got returned, because people were like, what the hell is this formula? And now I think it's like we're still kind of living in the phase like, what is happening with the baked shades? That's what we have going on the eye. I'm going to apply mascara. I didn't talk about any mascaras in Critical Sass, and I don't know that I talked about any lip product, but there is a lip product I do want to talk about, even though I didn't talk about lip products. I'm going to use the Levitation Lash from Rituel de Fille on my lashes, and I'm not going to line them. Actually, that's a lie. I'm going to line them with Cocoa from Victoria Beckham, and then I'm going to use the Levitation Lash, and then we'll talk about lip product. I got the Pat McGrath shade all over my face. I made the decision to do that late in the game. I'm not really mad about it, but normally if I am choosing to use the Pat McGrath really sparkly and flaky shades, I will usually do my eyes first in that scenario. I've also heard from a couple of people that those glitter luster things from the Jordan Liberty palettes are hard to work with. So I guess my experience using the Pat McGrath shades is similar. So I mentioned that I have Endless Cacao already. It's just not in the chubby form. Goodness, this needs sharpened. And this is already eye and lip safe. So in theory, if I wanted to use it as an eyeliner, I could. But also, I think I know people who use this formula on their cheeks too. So if I wanted to do that with it, I could. But basically, just like I said in Critical Sass, whenever I decide something is worth something, it just is that. So I use this as a lip liner. I've never put it in my eyes before. And I also feel a little bit weird about putting things on my mouth and then on my eyes without sanitizing in between. And I have to imagine that there are people who would do that. That's my big concern, is that like I would get something really close to my eye. And not that I think my mouth is like that dirty. It's just like a different thing, I guess. Like I'm less worried about something that touches my eyes getting to my mouth rather than the other way around. I don't know. That could be crazy. Anyway, I'm gonna line my lips with this real quick. Jordan Liberty released lip oils with the blush palette and the lid lustres, or the luster formula. So I'm just going to use this lip oil from Fenty. It's the oil in the shade Amber, Rose Amber. Kind of in honor of that, I didn't talk about it during Critical Sass, but it's also included in the collection that he released with Glen Bunny. And that's it. That's a full face of makeup that I have in my makeup collection already. I don't have to buy anything else to do. And what a relief that is. I think something I would really like to shout out is like, this palette's a couple years old, and like I always find use in it, especially whenever it comes to like when I'm tempted by new neutral brown eyeshadows. I always think of this first because it's like I already have that. So I'm like always happy to pull it out. But I'm really glad that I talked about those Morphe palettes, because even though they are cheaper than Pat McGrath, I already have these Pat McGrath shades, and that was a nice reminder to use them again. And I forgot how pretty this blue periwinkle shade is. So I'm really glad I pulled them out and played with them. Not only that, it just also kind of more verified that this purchase of this blush from Trixie Cosmetics was really warranted, because I've been really lusting after that purple shade and I already have it in my makeup collection. I mean, I might still end up with one of those depending on how they swatch or whatever. We will see. And I also have Wisp, which is probably the kind of purple that I would wear more even than the baby shade. And so yeah, like, I don't know, I'm just very satisfied with the makeup in my collection. I don't feel like I need any of that new makeup. I have bronzers I love, just like, I already have a ton of makeup that I love, and I bet that you do too. So what new release has come out that you're very tempted by, and what's in your makeup collection already that you can use to scratch that itch and just remind yourself that you already have beautiful makeup? That's going to be it from me. Make sure you donate to Sisters Pittsburgh. That will be linked in the pinned comment down below. I'm on Patreon and I have channel memberships. You can find those in the description box. I do an additional video over there every single month, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And I think that's it. Remember to follow your haute, and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth. It's out.